Hi, Cromwell here. So it is with a very heavy heart that I record this episode. In light of the occurrences and the death of very important figures, Charlie Kirk and Voddie Baucham, and this episode is sort of like a tribute, an attempt to process, an attempt to also, I don't know if I would say, talk about what we do from here, right? An opportunity to reflect. Would I say an opportunity to process really the what the impact of the death of these people mean to us. So I'd not really planned this intro so well. It's an off the cuff intro, but it's gonna be beautiful. So let's get in.
I'm David Cromwell, and I believe in the virality of thoughts and the power of conversations to shape how we live for the better. This space is where those conversations happen and a home to people who are on a journey to truly live the way we were created to. Welcome to this safe space. Welcome to Cromwell's Harbour.
Okay, hi. So, man, I guess I would just start with how I'm doing. So currently, I'm kind of like in two places emotionally. So I have gotten like really good news. So I'm really, really excited. There was something to really celebrate about. I also, my leg has healed. And I think anytime that you have I don't know if I'll call it a privilege, but anytime you take a trip down not feeling too well, land, and you come back, I think you start to appreciate a lot more some of the things that we take for granted. And one of them would be the opportunity to be able to walk like without limping or being concerned about when something will dry up. So I'm really happy. And thank you guys so much for the care and love. I got a lot of messages from people asking me how I'm doing, and I really, really felt the love. Thank you guys. It did make me feel like oh wow, this is the journey that I always had in my head of people doing life together, and it was very, very, very sweet. Thank you guys so much. I also want to thank you guys as well. Sorry, this is just I'm not done telling how I'm doing, but I want to thank you guys for just your care, and also I want to thank you guys for your intentionality with the previous episode. I saw that a lot of people resonated with it, and I'm really glad that I got the chance to be able to open up something that truly mattered. And I mean, you can look forward to the next episodes. They would address it, but this is kind of like a brief intermission to talk about things that are very important. Yeah. So on the other end, I've talked about how there have been things to be excited about. There are things that are quite heartbreaking, and that's like the premise of this podcast, this episode, and we'll talk about it even more. I think we'll get into the heart of the episode now, right? So, I came across Charlie. I actually didn't get the chance to listen to Charlie. I think I found out more about him at the point of his death. So interestingly, I was trying to connect some dots. I thought the work that Tim Tebow was doing with, finding out the what's the word? I think the people that perpetrate, or the perpetrators rather, of child sex trafficking in the USA. There's some great work that Tim Tebow is doing there. So I think I remember seeing like them trying to sign like what looked like an executive order. And I thought Charlie Kirk was behind that, but I'm not sure of the ties there. So I didn't really get the chance to really know a lot about Charlie. But something was just so heartbreaking about, firstly, the fact that people even those that opposed him, right? If people that didn't have your worldview could agree with the fact that, man, you're so respectable in the way you handle things. We like your approach. It's very humanizing. We like your ideals. We like the way you address conversations. If you could get that kind of green light from people that are not on your side, man, you're doing something good. And I think something was just so heartbreaking about seeing the way he died. If like young guy, immense potential, and in a time when we need so many voices to speak up for the truth and things that are good. And this is not, in a sense, saying that everything that he did was perfect. I don't think he was perfect. I don't think even he said things the way I would have appreciated every single time. I've not watched enough to be able to put him. But I think the fact that someone would have that kind of, would I say, like, the fact that you could stand up for your beliefs and the fact that you could do it in such a way that I think I admired. I just like the fact that it wasn't aggressive. It wasn't demeaning. It was like, I'm trying to stand up for what I think. Values that I share, things like family, things like men being more responsible. These are some of the things that I kind of appreciated about the message. So I don't know the entirety of this context or the things that he spoke about. And, but I appreciated the fact that he spoke on some things that really I felt like would make society better, right? Voddie, on the other hand, I think Voddie was someone that I knew a lot more. Came across him, I think probably, first I think it was all these videos where he's calling people out for prosperity gospel, and that was a bit controversial for me because I still am trying to process my stance on what people refer to as prosperity gospel, especially considering the fact that God actually prospers. But, there's an extreme, and I feel like sometimes people go to the balance. Some people just, throw away the baby with the bathwater altogether, right? But like in the case of Voddie, I think one of the things that I really, really admired, and that's the fact that like his family values. I really, really admired that. I think maybe that's the thing that I really admired about the both of them, is the fact that they just really spoke about values that I think make the world better. I'm not saying everything they spoke about make the world better. There are things I don't agree with Baucham on. Like, first of all, it's like, I think he was not okay with dancing in church. Men are dancing in church. All right. So I don't particularly agree with everything that they stood for, but I think the things that they stood for that I agree in, I was so pleased that people were out there speaking about it. So with Voddie, I think, I don't have the privilege of having a dad that's alive today. So there are a couple of topics that I would really, sometimes wish I got the chance to hear from my father on, right? Like, especially when it comes to family values and, just navigating your identity as a man. And I think that that's one of the things that I really, really appreciated about him. The fact that he had this ability of being able to teach young men to be able to see, like, your role as a man as being a leader, as being a protector, being someone that is sacrificial, being someone that gives yourself up for your family. And I think just the way he was able to introduce it really sowed the vision for family that made me want to get married, and made me embrace the responsibility of that. And I feel like it was like just having a father that I didn't have, or I don't have right now, right? And so it was quite heartbreaking. Like, it really broke my heart when I heard that he had gone. The both of them, actually. Yeah. It's quite sad. Really, really sad. I think the important things to put into notice, and here's how I'm processing and trying to move on from this. First, I think it's just not to rush it. I think losing people, it offers a very rare opportunity that I feel like other things in life don't give. And that's the opportunity to really reflect and ask yourself important questions. If if I had the choice and I chose that today I want to leave the world, would I have truly lived, and what am I truly living for? Like, what matters to Voddie now? What matters to Charlie now? What matters when all of this is said and done? It makes you ask and, vet the most important things in life. And I feel like it just gives you, another thing that it gives is just this rare fuel to just do good and to have a drive more than earthly things can give, right? Where it's like, we will not make these debts go to waste. These people live for things. They've dropped the baton and we'll pick it up. And not just even picking it up to do the things they did. I think if you believe that those values, the specific things that you felt, were right, not everything that they were. But if you believe that specific values were healthy, I feel like the pain that losing someone gives you this rare opportunity to just channel all of that hurt and all of that grief into just giving that fuel to just be a better person. Right? To just be like, like, if family truly matters, maybe I'll stop sacrificing my family for other, things. Like, maybe it's time for me to actually like give myself more to these people. Right? Maybe it's time for me to be more vocal about my faith. Maybe it's time to be more vocal about the things that I, care for. Maybe it's time to be more vocal about my love for my society and my concern for the state of people's hearts. So I think losing people gives the opportunity to ask questions and gives you the chance to be able to channel that hurt as fuel to be able to do more. Like, there's just an engine that you could have that is not earthly. Like, it's born from a very deep place of like, this thing hurt a lot, but we won't allow this death go to waste. It won't just be something that will become dehumanized to, that will just say, oh, someone just died and we move on. Right? We will continue and do, and, honor their legacy by being better people in our lives. Right? So I want to go over this again just to say that I don't think people have to be perfect for their lives or their legacy to be honored. I think I take a lot of cues from God. Like, when we read the story of Abraham in other places in the Bible, if we never had Genesis, you would think Abraham was perfect. You would think he never made a mistake. But I think even God has this way of writing. When we see the story of, of the heroes of faith in Hebrews, we don't hear about how Moses killed somebody. We don't hear about how Abraham laughed. And the reason why Isaac's name was laughed at was because he was laughing at God when God told him. Right? We see that he never wavered. And I feel like we should not summarize people's lives by their flaws, because everybody understands what it is to be flawed. But if people could stand up for ideals and like the aspects of them that were noble, it's worthy enough to frame those parts and say, yes, we know you are imperfect, but we appreciate you so much for the great things and for the noble aspects of you, because those things are not easy to come by. And we will never wash down the great things about you because of the things that you don't get right. And on the back of the fact that these people did get some things right, a good number of things right, they actually are people that I honor and I respect and mean a lot. Yeah. So I think also another thing to think about is just to reframe. Because it's very easy to have that kind of fear that like, oh no, life is very fickle. You can be here one day and here another. And I think I've talked about this before in the podcast. And I think there is a healthy amount of empathy we should have when we lose people. But don't process it the wrong way and internalize it in a sense that you start to have fear that maybe you could turn out that way. Because if I be honest, like that fear has been poking me too. Right? because, look at men that have stood for God and what's happening. But you have to be able to take a step back and really be able to recenter and look at scripture, where scripture talks about, talks about how God protects his own, how he keeps his own children. And we might not have 100% answers to things, to everything, but we don't discard the things that are known for the things that are unknown, right? And you can still have that sense of faith, because between you, like, for people have different nuances and different things that impact the outcomes. And we might never understand those things until we get to the other side of eternity. But in our own lives, we're kind of like in the driving seat for the way things turn out in our lives. We have a bit more influence in our lives. And it would be a bit of injustice to you personally to internalize or wrongly process the outcome of someone else's life, to the point that you start to have a fear in your life that might end up becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. So there's a balance of empathy and reframing to not internalize in the wrong way. And that's why I mentioned the whole thing about channeling. And I think it's a healthy way of being able to process the loss of people, is when you channel that pain and that hurt and you just allow yourself feel it. I think one thing I find so beautiful about the Bible is just how emotional people were about emotional things. Like, I think I've forgotten the patriarch in the Bible. I think when he thought Joseph had gone and cried for, I think like 3 days. I've forgotten the amount of days he was crying. And this is a man, right? Jesus cried at Lazarus's funeral. There are things that should hurt. When Jesus heard about John the Baptist, he went on the boat, went to be by himself, right? There are things that should hurt, and maybe you should not be in a rush to make it not hurt. But rather allow that serve as fuel to push us in the right direction, and to be a bigger push or an engine to be the better versions of ourselves that we could be. I think another thing that I've been thinking about is, first is like just being able to answer those, like that question that I was saying, like what matters the most in the end, right? So if losing someone will hurt, we don't need to wait, because now I was just thinking about it, that like I really wish I got the chance to tell like Voddie how much he was a blessing to me, right? He probably will not know that there was a guy in Nigeria that was, watching his stuff. I probably have told him all things I don't agree with him on, but but I would just say, like, thank you for being a voice in this area. You've really encouraged me and given me a vision to run for in my life. And I think it was J. Cole that once talked about how people could appreciate someone. I don't listen to J. Cole, by the way, but I just remember that phrase in a song where people appreciate people more when they're dead than when they're alive. That kind of thing. I don't even know how he said it, but the point is that, like, in that, like, if something will matter if they're gone, let's show it now that they're here. I think it was Prophet Patoranking that said, appreciate me now when I dey alive. No be when I don't come out this life, you go to show up for my back. All right. I think it's just also a call to just be a bit more intentional about this thing to shape culture. And if, like, our culture is trying to make us more isolated, more desensitized, more dehumanized, more aware of what separates us. And I think moments like this should be a fuel to say, okay, you know what? Maybe I've been so occupied with work that I lost sight of the fact that, like, if this happened to a family member, I will be so gutted. And let that be something that helps reprioritize and rearrange your life. That when everything is all said and done, what really matters? And how can I show that with my day-to-day? So I've been thinking that, like, man, maybe I need to invest more in my mama, my brother, just taking care of their health, investing in their growth, just being a part of my family, because, like, these are people that I love a lot, right? How can I share some of the things that God has shown me with them? So, these are some of the things that are kind of coming to my mind. Another thing as well is, the random stranger that you just walk past because this happened as well. I'm just thinking about it. Like we lost one of the, so in my estate there are tricycle drivers. We call it keke here. And we heard that one of them died to an accident. And it was just really heartbreaking because he was one of the most amazing, most cheerful guys ever. And just, I guess, like, just the thought about just how much his death pained me. Like, it pained me a lot. Much more than I could ever have imagined. And is it a call for us to appreciate life? So that even when we lose people, we know that, like, I loved you while you were still here. Right? Or we just, would I say, display just more of love and value for life when life is still here than when, you know, people have gone. Yeah. Yeah. But I think it's also a call to just be humanized again, to feel again, to, you know, if you live in Lagos, to greet. I remember the time I was in the bus, and one guy was coming from Kaduna, and it's actually Gideon, the guy that bought this microphone for me, by the way. I think he entered inside the car, and then he said, "Good morning, everybody." And I just thought to myself, like, my God, probably been a year or 2 years or 3 years since I heard anybody greet everybody in a public space before they entered it. It's just a culture that we have where it's like everybody's just so focused on the grind that we're forgetting to be human. Now maybe it's a call like to feel again, you know. And I just pray God really helps, because like it's so easy to be hurt and then you now heal and your heart gets hardened even more. But I just pray that this doesn't, like, the sensitivity that this has given doesn't wear off. Like, I hope it opens up a trail that we could actually do something in our culture to be more human, to value life, to value people, right? Way more than we ever did before. And I just really just pray that, you know, these things don't just fade off. So I'm trying to see, because I didn't write anything. I just wrote things from my heart. I think the last thing is, or two things that came to mind are, I think there's a gap for male leadership, because interestingly, these two people are people that I think there's such a big attack on men in today's culture, being villainized, this shallow idea of men, like where you're just this, either you're a sexual being that just runs around, anything that isn't scared, you're always turning your head until you break your neck, or maybe you're just this character that games a lot, or maybe you're a character that wears skirts, or, you know, like there's just a lot of ideologies that are competing with what a man should be. And these voices that just resuscitate that higher calling, in a sense, to be sacrificial, to be a leader, to be like, to actually have God's idea of leadership, like to be loving, to be passionate, to be real, to love your wife, right? To love your kids, to invest in your family. I think there's a need for those voices to rise, and I don't think we necessarily need other Voddie and Charlies. Maybe we just need to just be a bit more intentional in all our different spheres to just contribute to the development of the men around you. And maybe it's also possible that I'm biased because I'm a man, so maybe that's how I'm seeing the world. But on the back of these people's death, I think it's something that I think is a void that we most likely should feel. Then I think the last thing that it has made me realize is that I think Drake said this. By the way, I don't listen to these many songs. I just pick sometimes things that I hear in public and I just really like it. I think there's a song that Drake had where he says, I don't even know if it's Drake, but the voice sounded like Drake in public. It's like, everybody dies, but not everybody lives. I think that's it. Right. And when you put into context the fact that people, like everyone, dies, the truth is that the fact that you die, because interestingly, my girlfriend, her grandmother died recently, and everybody was celebrating. They were even eating too much. We probably needed to stop them from eating as much as they were. deaths to some people, like my great grandma died at I think 107. When she died, I promise you nobody was crying. Everybody was. I think they were even staying around herself. Or you know how people can be sometimes superstitious that for long life. All right, so everyone dies. So the problem isn't death. The problem is the after that curtain and the before the curtain. So did you live, and what then happens after you cross that curtain, right? And I was talking to my girlfriend yesterday, and I was just telling her stuff like, what exactly is the reason to want to change the world, right? Why don't you just invest in your family, invest in your loved ones? Because those ones you can actually influence, and nobody will wake up one day and shoot you. Hopefully. So why, like, the cost of changing the world is very steep. And I guess today, and I guess, I told you guys before that how God speaks to me many times is that I ask real questions, and those questions end up becoming answered over time. And I think one thing that came to my heart today while I was spreading clothes was that, so the way it came was, I remember, so I went to Covenant University, Papa, Bishop David Oyedepo, is who we call Papa. And, with his voice and the way he sounds, and he says, Kenneth Hagin of blessed memory is not dead. He's in me, alive. I don't know how to get his voice. Pastor Kenneth has to do better, but he's in me, alive. And whenever I'm provoked, he comes through. And, the idea just came to me that, like, when you live for something bigger than yourself, everybody dies, but you get to live on in a very interesting way. You actually get to be immortalized in the sense that when you connect to something bigger than yourself, that thing has the ability to be able to inspire other people to continue where you like where you stopped, or to continue even your own journey. So in a weird way, you live through other people, right? In a very interesting and beautiful way, your life doesn't stop with just your life. So because you were connected to something bigger than yourself, you became the face for something that was way bigger than you. And so you become like this, what I say, symbol of something that everybody understands to be a useful thing to want and to stand for. And in a sense, you become a representation that people hold on to for like the future. So look at now, we're talking about voices for family and etc. and some of the good values they stood for, and we're thinking about them, right? They've gone, but other people's hearts have been stirred and want to do and to be better. So at the end of it all, everyone dies, right? But I think people that live for something bigger than themselves get to live twice. So they truly live here. They would live if they, lived for God and submitted themselves to the gospel of Christ. They will pass on into eternity and live there. And I guess maybe even God gives them a 2-for-1 combo by making them be immortalized and to live on through other people who are still alive. So I guess, it's comforting to know that they are smiling wherever they are right now. I was into a video of Voddie when he was saying that one day they will tell you that I'm dead. And you said, don't believe the lie, because I might be gone, but there's some more. All right. Like, for a man to be alive and to be able to so confidently tell us what's going to happen when he's dead. I think just watching that video was just really comforting. And it also just made me just, realize that, maybe there's actually a reason to live for something bigger than yourself. So wherever that takes me, whether it's just in a small corner, whether it's a global stage, whatever that is, wherever it takes you to as well, right? Wherever it takes you, but live for something more than yourself, because you get the privilege to live through others. You will truly live here, you live there, and then you have 2-for-1 combo of living through others as well. Because interestingly, that's what happened with my dad. I don't think my dad ever got the chance to have that kind of platform. But to a large extent, I will never forget GOY, Jesus, others, and yourself. Something that he told me was like the principle that he lived by, and the sacrifices, and just that image that he painted of just loving people, just that image that he painted of family, of sacrificing for your people, and ensuring that your tribe are in a good place. So I think it's something to think about. And I hope that the way I have processed and the way I am currently still processing the death of these people gives you some form of light or something that you can take with you while you process their death as well. It's still a process. We're not done, and we're still going to keep on, still iterative, but here it is. And I'm also doing this for myself in the future, because I think whenever I have these moments of being opened up, it's always nice to capture them so that you don't get distracted with the day-to-day and business of life, that you lose some of these important, rare things that we don't want to experience again. But when they do, can give this rare like force of purpose and shift that sometimes we need in our lives. So share this with someone that you think will be blessed by it and will need to hear, and take it with you, and please listen to it as much as possible. This is not PR. This is not trying to get clicks. This is what I think would help shape culture for the better and help people to truly live. All right, so with that said, thank you so much for stopping by at the harbor. Bye. See you next time. Bye.